Hello and welcome to The Wise Why. This morning we are talking periods. I'm going to put it out there straight away. And the reason I'm putting it out there is that some people may find this offensive and some people will be uncomfortable. But you know what? Most of us know someone who menstruates. And I am joined this morning by the incredible Lucy Self, who I met on an Oxlep course. And her business model blew me away. Oh my goodness, it's revolutionary. It will change every person who menstruates life. So, as usual, the show is not about me, and I am going to go straight to Lucy. Lucy, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, so I'm Lucy and I am the founder and creator of Save My Knickers. So Save My Knickers is a stain removing powder that gets blood out of underwear, clothing, bedding, pajamas, you name it, you get blood on it. Save My Knickers is here to come to the rescue. But I also lived a previous life as an NHS children's physio. I'm a mum of a 4-year-old. And I live in Oxfordshire with my husband, and I love learning new things. So my husband and I recently took up adult gymnastics. So lots of different things.
Well, every time I speak to you, I find out something new. I love that. The idea of me currently doing gymnastics is hysterical because, as most people know, I've not been able to walk since August. I am now walking. But wow, adult gymnastics. I'm not going to try it. Can I explore, how long were you in the NHS for?
So I was in the NHS for about 13 years, I think. And then left in February to take on knicker saving full time. So that's been a bit of a culture shock for sure.
I remember us talking about that on that Oxlep course of how do you go, and this is something that a lot of business owners don't do. And I was with a new client yesterday who's also a new business owner, and we kind of go into a new business and we throw ourselves into it, hammer and tongs, and yet we forget about our time and we forget to actually celebrate how much we've achieved. Or in I think in your case, I was saying, have you given yourself time to kind of go through a decompression chamber? Did you actually get to do that in the end?
Sort of. So I definitely had this coming out of the NHS to being like, I've got all of this time now to work on Save My Knickers and to help as many people as possible. But actually, I sort of threw myself into it too quickly. And I did take some time to take a step back and think about what I wanted to achieve and how I was going to use my time. And then I think having a young child, then that obviously changes things a little bit. So she started school in September. So I'm kind of like going through this whole rethinking how I'm doing it process. So whereas actually when I came out of the NHS in February, I probably should have taken like a week or so to decompress and do it all then. It's kind of been like a gradual journey. And I feel like I'm going to use the next few weeks to continue that journey. And then the new year will be like, right, okay, where do we go from here?
So when my daughter went to school, I felt lost, and I ended up crocheting a jumper, which I've been honest about, because I was almost crippled with not knowing who I was any longer. I'd kind of lost my mum identity, but I wasn't quite a business owner, and I really struggled in that space. How have you found adjusting to it?
So I feel like school has been a little bit easier. I think the bit that I found the hardest with the transition from being like having a career and having an identity and then being a mum was actually going back to maternity leave in the first place, or from maternity leave, sorry, to back into the NHS. I think when you have a child, it then changes your perspective on how you look at things. And I was sort of mum at home, and then I kind of was like, well, I'm a physio at work, but like, is that really me? And is that what I really want to do with the rest of my time that I'm, not being mum? And I think then finding Save My Knickers and doing all of that, I could drive all of my energy and passion to something that I really, really believed and really, really enjoyed. And so I feel like I did a lot of that, finding myself and finding what I wanted to do then. And then it's kind of been this long transition to now she's at school. I feel really, really fortunate and really thankful that I've got that thing. I've got Save My Knickers that I can, that is me. And I'm not sort of having that battle of like, oh, am I mum? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? I think I kind of went through that, but a bit earlier on. So yeah, I'm really fortunate and really grateful that I haven't got to add that into the mix as well. Now she's at school.
That's brilliant. Can you, because a lot of people were going, right, so we've heard this periods, we've heard menstruation, we've heard Save My Knickers. And as a woman who is more mature, I desperately need to use your product. So can you explain how it actually works?
So it's a powder, and it comes in, here we go, comes in a tube. And so what you do is, say you've got some blood on some underwear or some clothing or bedding, is before you put that item in the wash, is you cover the stain in the powder, the Save My Knickers powder, and then a little bit of water at a time, make a grainy paste on the stain, roll that item up, and then put it in some cold water to soak overnight. I use teacups for knickers. Obviously, put the teacups in the wash afterwards. But teacups are really good for knickers for soaking them overnight in the cold water, or like a washing up bowl or a mixing bowl for a bigger item. And then you just put it in the wash as normal. So you haven't got to, wash it separately or anything like that. It just pop it in with everything else. So it takes maybe 60 seconds to use. Not very long at all. So
I absolutely love it. And I love your branding, because your branding has been quite a journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's something from day one that I knew I wanted to get right, because I knew that periods are something people don't want to talk about. They want to shy away from it. And I wanted to create something that was beautiful and people were happy to look at and happy to have around, and they want to pick it up and they want to touch it and they want to feel it. But I also didn't want to go down the route of having like a big air horn and being like, we're talking about periods, because I realized that for some people that's way too much. And I kind of wanted to find this really happy middle ground of sort of being quite factual and quite, matter of fact about things, and not being in people's faces, but also not being something that you want to hide under the sink. Yes, we're we're here to help with your laundry and with cleaning and that sort of thing, but we're not going to be put under the sink with bleach. So yeah, the branding is something that's been very important to us.
There's more to your branding though, isn't it? Because it's eco.
Yes. Yeah, so we are plastic free as well, which I'm really, really proud to be, because I think a lot of cleaning products and a lot of laundry products do come in plastic packaging. So yeah, our tubes are cardboard, and we've got a little extra metal lid underneath just for extra security to make sure the powder doesn't escape. And we have a branded spoon, which is bamboo. So everything, we're about reducing waste and not trying to add to the pollution and the extra plastic that we already have in the world.
So as I said, your journey absolutely inspired me, and it does show that active listening works, because I really did listen on those courses. Because I think back to those, and that was a wonderful. I mean, we were able to support each other, and I think that's also got one of the strengths of Oxlep. I'm going to bring them in quickly because they have really supported me, and I'm sure you've also had some great support from them over the last year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before I started this, I kind of didn't know what support was out there, and just there is so much support if you just sort of know where to look. And I think your local council, wherever you are in the country, there are some amazing support networks out there. And Oxlep for me have been incredible. I think that has been one of the biggest challenges, is coming out of the NHS and having that team and that support structure and all those people in place to go to and turn to for help. To being by yourself, it's quite lonely. And Oxlep are brilliant for putting you in touch with somebody that knows, XYZ, or for running networking things or peer support things and online training. And they're just fantastic. So yeah, everybody go and search up Oxlep.
And this is the interesting thing, because a lot of the clients I get are new startups who want to, they want to embrace video or want to know how to do their content marketing, and it's great because I can really help them and I can look at every aspect of it. But they've never even heard of an LEP. And it astounds me how many people have no idea what is available for a small business owner to help and support. So I'm really pleased that I met you on there. I want to talk about your daughter a little bit, because she really inspires you, doesn't she?
Yeah, she really does. And I don't know if anybody else out there has a under 5, shall we? I mean, it might be older children, but I'm only experiencing that up to under 5. They don't stop picking their nose. And I don't know what it is about noses and preschoolers, but so she's one of these kids, pick, and then her nose will bleed and the blood will get everywhere, white bed sheets, clothing, everything. And she's like, oh, don't worry, mummy, we've got Save My Knickers. I'm like, yes, that's great, but please stop picking your nose. And I really do think as well, the period industry, the period space, has come along so much since we were teenagers. And I'm just, not that I'm wishing her life away, but I'm really excited for when she gets to that time that there's going to be so many different options for her. Even just things like period products, period pants are just one of the best inventions, I think, ever. And if I had them when I was a teenager, that would have been amazing. Think of all the anxiety that you face at school. Am I coming on my period? Am I not coming on my period? Just, have something like period pants is amazing. Or, when you go to the toilet and you're embarrassed because, the pads are rustling, or the tampon packet is rustling, and to have a reusable pad that doesn't rustle and is also better for the environment. So there's so many bonuses. And I think as well, as a culture and as a nation, we're talking about periods more. So she's going to grow up in a household where we use terms like vulva and vagina and period and tampon, and we don't shy away from them. That's just what they are. And I think it's really empowering and really important that, you know, that generation now is coming and growing up in that environment, and it's not something to be embarrassed about, because it is something that happens to everybody. You know, half the population have a period. So yeah, I think it's brilliant that we're changing the way that we're talking about periods.
It's interesting what you said. I think it was, and I'm forgive me if I get the date wrong, but I was at drama college studying, so I'm a little bit older. And the first tampon, or not tampon, or it might have been always, and it was my college friend of mine who I was training with, and she jumped out of a plane, and it was might have been always with wings. I can't remember, but it was like one of the very first period adverts, and she was really embarrassed. And I remember being, as an actor, going for a casting for a Canistan advert, and I didn't want to get it. I remember going, I don't want to get it. I don't want to be associated with that. And that is such a shame, to think about the way that we felt. And as I said, I'm a generation older. You know, that rustling of a packet was, I remember the boys at school going, ooh, you've got your period, and you'd be embarrassed. And, you know, the embarrassing times, especially at that beginning. And I'm going to bring in about the menopausal side of it, because that embarrassment that you have as a teenager, it comes back when you go through the perimenopause, because you just have no idea when you're going to have a period. And I believe you've had, is it I can never say this phrase.
Polycystic ovary syndrome. Yeah, so PCOS. So with that, it's irregular periods. And I think sometimes people like out there do have a regular period, and that's great, and that's a percentage of the population. And then I think there's lots of us out there that don't, as you say, like teenagers, people that are going through the menopause, people with conditions that impact their periods like PCOS. So can cause really irregular bleeding. And I think sometimes there's this misconception of like, well, surely you know when you're coming on your period, or surely you know when that's going to happen. And actually you don't. And that's just, you know, we don't necessarily want to be wearing a pad every single day, or a pair of period knickers every single day. You want to wear your best knickers. Best knickers make you feel fantastic. There's nothing worse than sad, drab pants. They make you feel like this. And brilliant, fantastic knickers make you feel great. And you know, you don't know when you're going to come on your period. And I think that's where Save My Knickers, you know, is a bit magic, because you can wear your favorite knickers and it doesn't matter. And yeah, so I think that's one of the other messages is, yes, period pants are great and you can be prepared, but also wear your favorite knickers because they make you feel fantastic.
I love that. And you know, if I think back to, I worked in quite a male-dominated environment, and you would think that would be more uncomfortable in some respects, but they all have wives or partners, and they would go out and get me paracetamol. You know, they would go and buy me if I was caught short, and I knew the guys I could go to and go, can you go to the chemist for me? And I think that's also, it's magical that we can normalize this rather than hide it. And of course, we can normalize the menopause, and we can normalize polycystic ovarian. Did I get this right?
Polycystic ovary syndrome. Yeah. Or just call it PCOS.
PCOS. I love it, because being dyslexic, I get so many things wrong. So along the way, I know your daughter's inspired you, but who else has absolutely inspired you to be who you are?
You know what? I was thinking about this, and it's probably been my husband. And I know that sounds really, really corny. But I feel like he's been my biggest cheerleader throughout all of this. And he's always believed me. And he's never said, oh, I don't think that's a very good idea, or, oh, I don't think you could do it. Like everything I've said to him, he's been like, yes, do it. 100%. You've got this. And I think he has given me the confidence to do this and to make it happen. I mean, I have to say, to start with, he was a bit like, you want to do what? But again, I think that comes back to, he doesn't do the washing. And he does, I'm not exactly going to him, look at my pants, look what's happened. So once he'd got his head around the fact that this was a problem and I'd found a solution, he's always been there as my biggest cheerleader. So I think it's been him.
I love that. I've got the same. I wouldn't be able to do my business without my husband. He's my rock. And I tell everybody how much he is my rock, but he actually gave me the first capital to set up. So I wouldn't have KVDB without him. And he, like you, he's believed in me. He doesn't watch The Wise Why. He's never watched The Wise Why, but he's never watched any of my YouTube channel either. And he goes, yeah, you do your thing. Just off you go. But he's always there supporting. So along the way, you've done this thing. You've left the NHS. You've got Save My Knickers. You've been inspired. you've had your ups and your downs, and it is challenging being a startup or getting to know your business, but you must have had some aha moments along the way.
Definitely. And I think one of the biggest ones was when I first started out. So I started out with this because I was bored of ruining my own knickers and my own clothes and bedding and whatnot. And I sort of was like, there's got to be something that works. And so when I was experimenting and trying to find something that removed bloodstains, to start with, it was just for me, because I thought I was the only person that was a problem for. And then it's only when I discovered this sort of magic solution, I was like, oh, I have to share this and talk about this to people because I think this is really exciting. And then I realized I wasn't alone and I wasn't the only person to get blood on anything. And I think that was probably one of the biggest aha moments was, oh my goodness, this could help so many people. And it's not just me and I'm not alone. And, you know, I think everybody I speak to was like, yeah, I ruined this pair of pants, or I ruined this, or I ruined that. And so I think probably right back at the beginning when I was in my kitchen and just talking to a couple of friends, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is it. This is the answer. So that I think is probably, the biggest one.
Because it wasn't a quick process, was it? You had to really play around to get your formula to make this work.
Yeah, so I came up with the idea, I think, back in 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago now, and experimenting in the kitchen and trying to work out, you know, different quantities of things and different, you know, fabrics and, you know, different times to let it soak and different, you know, ways of using it. But I think one of the funniest bits about the whole story when I look back on that time is obviously I don't have a constant supply of blood. And so whenever anybody had a nosebleed or cut themselves, I'd be like, quick, get a pair of knickers. And then only when I look back, I was like, it didn't have to be a pair of knickers. It could have been, you know, a flannel, or it could have been like some fabric samples. But every time I'd like go to my knicker drawer, be like, which one haven't we tested? Wipe your nose on that.
I love it. So you've done all of this. You've got to where you are. There must have been some moments where you just went, why am I doing this?
Oh, yeah. And I think one of the biggest ones was after I come out of the NHS and I was really excited and like, oh, this is it. And I'm going to, you know, be saving knickers everywhere. And then that like sort of lonely, when you're working by yourself in a small business, like realization hit. And I think there were just a couple of things that had happened. Whereas if I'd been in my NHS role, I'd have known exactly who to call. There'd have been a procedure to follow. There would have been a person to talk to, and it would have been really clear. And then I sort of had that moment in Save My Knickers where I was like, it's just me and I'm the only person and I'm totally responsible and there's nobody else. There's, you know, Oxlep and friends and family and stuff, but eventually it all just comes back to me and I don't have that big team around me. And I was a bit like, oh, okay, that's quite scary and I think quite isolating. So I think that's probably been one of the hardest points was then.
And another thing that really fascinates, because I love your marketing because it is there, it's strong, you know what you're doing, but how have you found marketing your product on places like Instagram and LinkedIn?
So that's been a bit of a I think to start with, not everybody is ready to talk about it. And whether it's periods or bloodstains and you know, people are embarrassed and people don't want to talk about it. So that in itself is quite challenging. Whereas if we were, you know, I don't know, a mascara or a t-shirt, you know, people are willing to talk about that sort of thing openly on social media. Whereas you might talk about your period with your close friends. There's a very sort of small group of people that are willing to go out and share that in a social media context. And we've also had quite a few issues with my account being blocked and content being taken down because of the sorts of things that we're showing and things we're talking about. So that is also quite difficult. So I got some of our customers to film video clips of them just sort of bottom half in their favorite knickers, just doing a bit of a dance, and I stitched them all together. I made a video. It was meant to be a happy, joyful look, everyone's wearing their favorite pants, and it got taken down because apparently it was deemed sexy, and it had images of women in underwear. And then I had another image of just again a pair of legs and a pair of knickers, and there is some blood on the knickers, and that got taken down because it violated some policies. So that's been really challenging. So we've got the challenge of people don't really want to talk about it, and then I've got the challenge that, you know, Meta keep taking everything down again, and my account is still blocked. So yeah, that's probably one of my other moments that makes me go, do I really want to do this? But
do you? I'm sorry if you already do this, but do you blog? Because that's a really I mean, I've started blogging, but it's a really powerful way that you can then share that onto Pinterest or something, and at least then we can. Because your story is really important, and getting that message out. It shouldn't be. I appreciate that it's sensitive. I
Yeah,
really do understand that this is a sensitive subject. It's an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people. I mean, we're still, as I was talking to you this week, I tried to find hashtags for women's health on LinkedIn, and I was shocked. I was genuinely shocked at how little people follow these hashtags, and yet the amount of people on LinkedIn who are women or are looking at health issues that are relatable to the female gender. I'm trying to be non-gender specific, but even that is really hard to find. And I appreciate that there is that, oh, I don't want to talk about it, but we must talk about it. It's otherwise we're shaming our future generations.
yeah,
That's what, I know people will find this shocking, but I want my daughter to be comfortable and confident to know that this is normal.
definitely, definitely. And it's been interesting, actually. I think the majority of people that I talk to are like, they're for it. They want to talk about it. And after that initial shock of, oh my goodness, I can't believe she said the word period on a Tuesday morning. But after that initial shock, they're really on board. And I think I've only had less than a handful of people that have said that what I'm doing or talking about is disgusting. And there has been a bit of an element of, oh, we went through it and we had to suffer it, so you should have to suffer that too. And I think that's really sad that, generations don't want to make it better for future generations. I just think if you had to suffer something like being ashamed of your period, why not make it better for somebody else? I think why go, well, actually, you should have to suffer that too. I think that's really sad that people.
Yeah, and that's the same as why I guess Davina McCall is desperately trying to raise awareness of the menopause, and there's lots of stuff going through Parliament right now to support women and HR changes, but they should also be there for the period. And because I can remember having to struggle with brain fog, trying desperately to concentrate, where I was almost doubled up. People don't realise how debilitating a monthly can be, and just to change the word there, but I've been rushed to hospital. When I was 14, I was on a school trip and I was rushed to hospital because they thought I had an appendicitis. I didn't. I didn't know I had what was coming. I had no idea because I wasn't regular. And what came, and the doctor was brilliant and understanding. They did all the tests and they went, it's just your monthly. And and I think even that point, and we are talking about the 80s, it's like, has your mummy talked to you about Auntie Flo? And it's like, wow. If I said that to my daughter now, I'd be gutted because, like you, I call the body what it is. I don't need to hide it. And one of the things that's really important is when we do name our body parts that we use the correct name, because we don't want it to be called a foo-foo. Because if somebody touches you inappropriately, or my daughter, I wanted to say, no, he touched me here, or she touched me here, so that they touched me here. So I know exactly what's going on. So naming it and not shaming, I think, is really important, which is why I asked you controversially onto LinkedIn to talk about period. So who's helped you? And I've asked you about your husband, but is there anybody else who's been a massive support to you?
So there's a few colleagues in my old team in the NHS who I didn't tell them to start with what I was doing. Again, I think maybe a little bit of that embarrassment about, the whole scenario. And also the fear of failure, that side of things. But once I told them, they have been brilliant, and I still see them really regularly. There's a couple of them that I really keep in contact with, and they are sort of there, like waving the flags, and like they're my biggest cheerleaders and advocates. And I think that's fantastic because I was leaving them not being in their team anymore. So I did have a bit of I don't want them to resent me, and I don't want them to, obviously they're going to be sad that I'm not there, but they were just like, go for it. You're going to fly. And they have been incredibly supportive as well, which is really lovely. And I've got some friends that also run small businesses. So I think it's nice to find somebody else that is doing a similar thing to you. So when you say, oh, this thing happened, there's somebody else that understands what it is that you're talking about and can appreciate, oh yeah, it is really annoying when Instagram does that, or it is really annoying when, this thing happens. So yeah, I've been really, really fortunate. I've got a very, very good support network.
It's just, and it has been. I mean, how long have you been going now? How many years?
2 years. We had our birthday in October.
Wow. Yeah, we just had our Wise Wise birthday. I'm quite excited. We've been doing this for a year. Why? So there's lots of people out there. We've talked about the type of customer. How can somebody find you? I think it's really important to explain where they can find your product, because I would like people to know exactly where to go. Particularly if you're like me and you've got a child who is going to, no, I mean, mine's too young, but she is at some point going to enter that time of her life. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So if you put into Google "Save My Knickers," we are the first people that come up. Or you can put in, well, our website is save-my-knickers.com. And again, we're on Instagram and Facebook. If you just search "Save My Knickers," we should come up as well. And it's interesting you say about the daughters thing, because I've had quite a few customers with that sort of teenage or sort of like coming up to teenage age bracket, who have used Save My Knickers as a discussion point. So rather than coming in with something that could be quite scary, like a box of tampons or, you know, a box of pads, that might be a little bit overwhelming, is getting Save My Knickers and saying, look, you're going to leak, you're going to get blood on stuff. That's okay. You know, let's talk about why that's going to happen. And they've said that that's been a really lovely conversation starter, because it's been a little bit less maybe scary and daunting than, a period product. So that's been lovely feedback.
Honestly, and I think that's a lovely way of looking at it, because that is what happens, isn't it? We get to a point, we know it's coming, but we don't really know what it is until it happens to us. This is where you've been in the hot seat for a very long time, and you get to turn the tables and ask me a question that I've got no idea what it's going to be.
Oh, great question. So how do you think I mean, you've kind of answered this a little bit already, but how else do you think you're going to empower your daughter to talk openly about periods and women's health issues?
So we are really open with her. We use all the terminologies that we should use. We even now, she's 6. We tell her that it's her body. If she doesn't want to be kissed, she doesn't have to be kissed. It's up to her. We've empowered her from a really young age that it's her choice, and I think it's really important. She doesn't have to do anything that she doesn't want to do. There are points where obviously I go, no, I'm your mummy. That's being rude. But mostly we allow her the choice, and even down to whether or not she's going to have the flu thing that goes through school. Are you happy to have it? You are awesome. We're going to book you on. So we really empower her with choice, and we've done that from a really young age, because in this day and age, no matter who you are, choice is the one thing that we can do. So I give her choices.
I love that. And I love the choice about whether you want to give someone a kiss or a hug. Yeah, because you never really think about that, but actually, yeah, that is a choice that they should be able to make, isn't it?
And it's difficult. Don't get me wrong. There are cultures, and obviously my husband is Dutch, so culturally in Holland you greet people with 3 kisses. But we've actually had to say to our daughter, if you don't want to, that's okay. It's perfectly normal to say no, thank you, and you can have your own space, your own choice whether or not you want to go in for the kiss. If you don't want to, so you know, when you say goodbye to grandparents, in our case Oma and Opa, or granny and granddad, instead of saying go on, give them a kiss, we go, it's up to you. Do you want to? And
Yeah.
it's been really difficult, because obviously my parents and Oma and Opa are used to the culture of you put your child forward, but we felt that it was really important that she was empowered to make that choice.
I
We
love
also
that.
don't show anything, and this is very key. We don't share anything about her on social media, but that's again a choice. The reason for that is I grew up without social media, so I want her to feel that it's up to her if she goes on it or not. Again, I remember it's that shame thing. So I just hit about 14. My monthlies were on and off. We were having a party at my house, and I'd gone through the phone book, the photo book, and I found lots of pictures of me on the beach as a child. I was only 5, but I was topless, and I literally took them all. My mum's gutted. I took them all out the folder and burnt them, because I didn't want my school friends to see me. And it's that shame thing again. We're shamed from such an early age. And that's partly why I love you. Yeah, one of the reasons I love your product is because it helps us overcome that shame. So we've had a couple of comments. We're going to quickly go to them because they've been coming in, and I normally go to the comments at the end. So Maureen has commented, and she said it's a great product, Lucy.
Oh, thank you.
And also having a supportive network of small business owners is so important. And well, I'm here to support you, and I know you're there to support me.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your journey and raising awareness of a subject that can be shameful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirsty. It's been lovely.